Hello, hello. It is Friday, and it is Ask Christian Anarchist, number 58. And right now, trying to make sure to get everything all set up because we got the live chat going for all the different stream sites I'm doing right now. I'm doing Twitter, I'm doing Discord, Hangouts, making sure that everything is going well. But yes, this is Ask Christian Anarchist, and of course, like I said, I am your host, the CA Maestro himself. Anyways, enough of me being all stupid. Let me actually get to it today. So, if you're just tuning in, and I see we've got a few people that are watching that are just now tuning in, you're probably wondering if this is Ask Christian Anarchist. How then can you ask a question? Well, that's a very good question that you just asked. And I'm really going to have to consider figuring out a final way to do this. So let me just go ahead and show the list of ways that you can ask a question. So let me present to everyone, so make sure that y'all see this clearly. So there are 4 ways you can ask here on this Christian Anarchist asking segment. So, number 1, you see that live chat? It should be on your YouTube that you're watching this off of. It says live chat. You can ask your question via live chat, and hopefully I can answer the question through there. Now, we also have Twitter. Use the hashtag AskCA, and we will get to that. And I'll make sure to read all the any questions that come through there. Then, of course, you can ask for the link via Skype. Speaking of which, let me go ahead and check on that, because I know Veckel will probably also want the link, and I can get it to him only through there. But there's also, if you have followed me on Hangouts before, you can ask for the link there as well. Or if you could find or tag me in a Google Plus or even direct message on Twitter, either way, that'll work just fine. And for some reason, my Skype does not have me have my contacts on there. I don't know what's going on, so I'll just have to take a look back at that, see what's going on. Anyways, so yeah, then you have asking on Discord. So yes, you can go to the Discord server. It's in the description that you can check it out and ask a question. Go to the hashtag show questions only section, and thus your questions begin. Speaking of which, I'm trying to make sure to remind some of the people, because we don't have any questions in the Discord yet. So who knows, maybe we'll get some. But that being said, let me just go ahead and delete this. So yes, if y'all want to go ahead and get yourself on in here and get them questions answered, or send them in the live chat. While y'all actually do that, I do want to go over something that was discussed. Yeah, for those who tuned in late last night, and the episode's actually being uploaded for the podcast edition up on YouTube right now. I'm gonna still keep the Google Hangouts itself, but just edit it as the video version, because I know how arcane can be and start making accusations that I'm hiding something by deleting the video. I know how he operates, so I will just keep it there. Oh, sorry. I'm still trying to recover a bit after being sick for a while. But yeah, there was something I noticed when we talked, and y'all heard that, we were going over the issue about the Bible dictionaries issue, and he quotes one. Then I told him it was outdated, and as one friend notes, that it uses the Hamitic theory. At least that's what he said about it. And I told him that there is a Zondervan illustrated Bible dictionary from the same exact scholars who do not mention this whole thing. And he had this problem with it, and apparently he almost sounded like I could just go to any dictionary and it would probably say it. And like I've shown before, that for Christmas I ended up getting the Holman's Illustrated Bible Dictionary, which is so far, based on all the datings, the most up-to-date Bible dictionary out there so far. And so when we go to this particular instance where it talks about Ham, let us go there real quick. We only see one short paragraph in which Ham is discussed concerning the issue. And it says, personal name meaning Hot, second of Noah's 3 sons. Following the flood, he discovered Noah, his father, naked and drunken, and reported it to Shem and Japheth. When Noah learned of the incident, he pronounced a curse on Cain and the sons of Ham. And then here's where the key is. Ham became the original ancestor of the Cushites, the Egyptians, and the Canaanites. So we see right here that we have 3 people: Cushites, Egyptians, and the Canaanites. Now, the Egyptians, as I have affirmed, were not black, but they were more dark-skinned Arabian types. That's what I would say is the dark skin. And when it comes to the Cushites, those are people that are definitely black. And this is the one group that branches off from Ham that has the skin. But the Egyptians and the Canaanites do not bear the skin color that the Cushites had, or the Nubians for that matter. So that is from one of the Bible dictionaries that's the most up to date in regards to what Arcane Logos was discussing with me the other day. So I thought that would have been brilliant to share, because we've been going at it in the Hangout or on the Google Plus page, and when I've shown this whole thing about what the updated Illustrated Bible Dictionary had said, he simply says, quote, "You could believe that, and you will because you trust academia. Either way, your argument has already failed, because that I admitted that Ham was the progenitor of the dark races, which includes the Egyptians, and the Bible says that Moses and Paul were mistaken for Egyptians." Gets game over. And I guess I'm going to say the same thing. If you want to watch what happened, what actually happened, don't just take his word for it. Go back and listen to what actually occurred in the discussion, and you be the judge, not Arcane Logos, who has a very big egomania complex going on. And anyways, so that being said, we don't have anybody in here right now. So let me just put this here. All right. So before we get to the live chat, because we still need more questions there to build up a good audience, keep sending in your questions, by the way. By the way, I see a religious fanboy saying, how was my day? My day's going pretty well. But we have the Silver Reploid is submitting a question to us. Let me see if I can, oh, for goodness sake, zoom in a little bit on this thing here, so that way we can get that for the audience here. All right, so Ask Christian Anarchist, first question from Twitter comes from the Silver Reploid, who asks, who or what is your favorite band? All right, I just want to make sure that that's getting to the audience. So and it might, yeah, it is. All right, so yeah, who or what is your favorite band? At the moment, it would have to be there's currently 2 of them that there's War of Ages and For Today. Those are the 2 bands that I'm listening to right now that have me kind of divided on that. They're both Christian hardcore music, so I mean, and it's a very good genre in my opinion. All right, so did I delete the, let me just do that. so that way I can just treat Twitter as normal on there. All right. So thank you for the question there, Silver. Let's go back to the chat. There we go. Now everything's back to normal. All right. So first question. See, Romans. Okay, see, Ghost Gamer is a new one to the scene, at least to me. All right. Sorry. All right, so apparently this looks like, at least so far what it seems, complex question. Revelation 1:7, every eye will see him, including those who killed him. John 5:28, 29, all in grave will hear his voice and come forth to eternal life or eternal punishment. Do these verses both represent the coming of Christ? If not, then when? Okay. So far you've quoted Revelation, which so far the chapter itself does already start in chapter 1 with verses that mention the second coming. Every eye will see him, including those who killed him, and apparently, and it would also include those who would be on earth as well. And there's other instances where it describes the figurative language, and this is what we were kind of talking about last night in the chat with Arcane. The issue about like Revelation 1:16 and 17, the verses that describe apocalyptic imagery of Christ in reference to what it'd be like at the second coming, one of which includes the tongue being like a sharp sword, and it shows the triumph and the bravery and the all that stuff that will be going on while he's on earth. It says Surreal saying when Arcane or the Israelites come in, let him know. No, this is Ask Christian Anarchist. And plus I'm not even sure I want to have another conversation with Arcane after last night's discussion. So I just left him with a few bits of information. It's up to him whether he wants to take it or not. But yeah, I think the verses do refer to the second coming. But as far as John, I don't think these in particular. I think they're just simply saying all in the grave will hear his voice and come forth to eternal life or eternal punishment. It just says that those who die and have chosen their path, whether to believe in Christ or not, will have the choice of either eternal life or eternal punishment. Let me check the... Okay, we still have nobody that's joined in the actual chat itself. Okay, so religious fanboy. Oh, yeah, no, we've already covered that. All right. Doctrines of Grace asks, how much money would you be willing to pay to see a debate between James White and J.D. Hall? Before I answer this, there's like 8 people watching in the live chat. Please submit your questions because we are seriously running out. And I see that Christian Man is in the audience. And I added you in the Hangout. So if you want to help me out here, because I don't want to just simply talk without any topic or without any much discussions or questions. I would not be willing to pay money to see it, because personally, I think anything trying to argue with J.D. Hall is very unfruitful, because it's quite clear the man wants to think he's right and has a lot of interesting statements to say, especially on his ever so popular Pulpit and Pen website. Practically, he's a pope, in my opinion. So, yeah. That being said, I would not pay money, but if there was a debate between those two, I'd say that'd be interesting. But I'm not going to be wasting my money on it, and I think James would be telling me that that would be the smart thing to do. Okay. Let me just get that out there. Yeah, Pope Hall, Christian man, Pope Hall. That's a bad, terrible ringtone to that particular statement. Christian man, though, it is ask a question here. What are your favorite books? Well, hopefully, if you can come in here, then this question will most certainly be answered. What are my favorite books? So far, there are a few of them. The 7 Days That Divide the World by John Lennox is a good one. What Every Christian Needs to Know About the Quran by James White, because it provides a very fair critique of the Quran and an examination of the Quran. Speaking of which, hello there, Christian man. What's another good one? Oh yeah, Biologos, the language of God by Francis Collins is a very good one. What else is there? Because I know there's one more. Well, I guess besides also then there's oh yeah. Trying to remember the name. The Biblical Theological Introduction to the New Testament, because of how in-depth it gives for the study of the New Testament. So those are some of my favorite books there, Christian man.
Got it.
There you go. So thank you for the question there. We got one question finally from the Discord chat, and that is from Wolves Are Cool. Have you ever been to the Holy Land experience? Have not, but I have heard stories about it. Let me try to make sure that's in Florida. I've heard people that have my grandparents have actually been to they've been over there and at the Holy Land experience, because I just noticed they had a mug that they had gotten from that. So I found that to be very interesting. But no, I haven't been there myself, and it's something I might consider doing one of these days. Just make sure to also turn off my phone real quick. Thanks for the question, by the way. But I got to make sure my phone's turned off so that way we don't get any disturbances on the air. Okay. All right. So there we go. What else do we have? Emmanuel T. What do you think of My Hero Academia? And it's a good show. I need to catch up on it because I've fallen behind on the series. I got to where the guy starts training with the trainer for All Might. So that's how far I've gotten. All right. So what books of the Bible are you guys studying? I'm currently in Isaiah for my study. Tulip Doctrines of Grace. I thought the Protestant Pope was MacArthur. Oh, no. You're mistaken. It's James White. But no, in all seriousness, no, we don't have a Pope. No. We're Protestants. We're smarter than that. Okay, so, ooh, my goodness. I need to get water. Okay. Ghost Gamer or Ghost Gaming or Ghost Hunter Gaming, whatever. John 5:28-29 says the hour is coming when all in the graves will hear his voice. Does this happen at beginning or end of 1,000 years? I don't know, and because the Bible doesn't tell us this. The most important thing that we should care about is this thing going to happen, period. Again, whether it begins or ends on the 1,000 years, it's ridiculous to even make that a debate issue, because there's really not much that we get on that. Jesus wasn't coming to preach the apocalyptic or the end times issues itself. Rather, He was trying to prepare people before that happens by preaching the message of the gospel, and so that people should believe in Jesus Christ. So that was what's important, not figuring out all these specific issues that we're having right now about that. All right, so let me see here. Any other? Okay, now we're out of questions right now on all sides of the issues. Hopefully, I'll much see if I can get Veckel in here. But until then, a Christian man, how are you doing today?
Doing okay.
So let me ask you this, because I noticed that you saw it yesterday. Did you see the discussion that happened for theological discussion yesterday?
Oh yes, with Hound and Chaos. Yes, that was.
Yeah.
I couldn't finish it, man. I could not finish it.
Well, I wouldn't blame you. It was it's pretty much, and I'm surprised it even lasted this long. I think this will be the longest episode of theological discussion that I've ever had, with it lasting about a 2-hour length like that. I think that's the longest I've ever gone, and it's because there was just so many things that he was wanting to talk about. So it was certainly a very interesting conversation, and it was the only topics we talked about were because we only covered the law at the last minute when I said we're going to wrap up. But we were mostly talking about whether if Israelites or Egyptians were black in their totality, meaning since the very beginning of their conception, were they black people. And it was just ridiculous that most of what it seemed to boil down to was was kind of a belief of nationalism, if you will. This idea that it has to be black people simply because that, there has, I guess, from his understanding, that everything fits their pattern. Because I remember seeing Surreal talk with Arcane before on the Deuteronomy 28 passages, and that's one of the things where the Hebrew Israelites go to make it seem like it's about them, especially about the Atlantic slave trade, when it mentions the ships going to Egypt. So yeah, I'm at a loss for words for honestly how to describe that, because now on the chats it's like basically saying, well, because I didn't know that Egypt was in Africa originally, I did not know that, because I've been a while since I've looked at a map. That he's basically saying, well, I should doubt and question if you do really know what you're talking about. He's trying to use that as if that's something to validate as an actual argument to dismiss things, which again, that would be a form of genetic fallacy, to just simply say, well, because I didn't know this, therefore anything I
an hominin fallacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the funniest thing is, though, is he pulled up like a bunch of oh, I got the images. And then he pulled up the one guy that looked like a Semitic man. The one pharaoh.
Yeah.
I was laughing so hard from that.
Well, not just that. One of the pharaohs, one of that pharaoh could have been actually a black guy, because this was actually, and this is noted in the discussion or the documentary that Reformed Apologetics Ministries made, is that there was a time when there were black pharaohs, but that was much, much later down the road in the 25th dynasty. And there are scholars that note this, especially in the book Africa and the Bible, that is mentioned that there was at one point in Egypt's history during the 25th dynasty, a time where I think want to say Nubians or Cushites. Surreal has studied this probably more than I have, so he could probably fill the blanks in on that and which one it was. They were there for a bit, and some of them had become inherited as pharaohs at some point. But even then, people recognized they weren't Egyptians, but they were either Nubians or Cushites.
Yeah, I'm actually now kind of rusty on my Egyptian history now because I haven't studied it for so long. So I know if I say anything, I'm probably gonna be like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." So I'm just kind of on just listen mode. But
Yeah.
oh man, uh, last night was I just wanted to jump in so bad.
Unfortunately, it was a one-on-one.
Yeah, I know. When you said that, I was like, oh well, hey, well. But
Yeah.
yeah, one of the things that when you look at um our Kane and I our little back and forth that we had, or even other Israelites in general,
Mhm.
I've been talking with them so much that now um I'm able to kind of have this thing in my mind where I'm able to kind of keep them on topic, even when they don't realize that they're going off topic.
Mhm.
Um, After a while, it gets a little annoying to them, but after a while, they start to go ahead and just break in and everything, and then we're able to just smooth things out. When you talk to them, they have so many things they want to talk about, but you have to keep focused. You have to keep your mind on the one topic that they asked, one question that they asked, and from there, you have to go ahead and just have them follow it to its logical conclusion, and they'll start to like change the topic once things start
Mhm.
to not really go in their favor. So you know that's the reason why when they start talking about, okay, well, you know Israelites are black and blah blah, like, no, what makes you an Israelite? What really makes you an Israelite? Well, what do they look like? How can we identify them today? No, that wasn't the question. The question was what makes people an Israelite? And you were saying on topic about circumcision and things, but
Mhm.
he just goes on a rampage, and a lot
That's
of
what I
times,
noticed.
yep.
That it mostly was an emotionalism that occurred occasionally,
hmm Yep, and
and that's what I
that's what
noticed.
happens.
Mhm. Yeah, because I
You
notice
know,
how
you
he sometimes is. But
yeah.
he is willing to have discussions like this with people. He apparently was hoping to have one with Faithful to God, but Faithful says that he only wants to do it in a formal debate style
Mm,
and not a discussion. And Arcane refuses to do formal debates. He thinks
yeah.
that they're a waste of time and that they don't benefit.
I'm
Um,
starting to notice that everyone's starting to get away from that. I remember
I'm
in
not.
26.
I made an exception because I know that it's part of theological discussion is my other format.
Yeah.
But with formal debates, I believe that you get a lot more done um, with that. And in fact, there was actually a podcast episode done of a on the dividing line, in which are you familiar with a Speaker's Corner?
Heard of it. Yeah.
You familiar with a girl that occasionally is in there debating the Muslims named Lizzie Schofield?
No, no, I'm not. No.
She's
Mm,
basically one of Jay Smith's friends, and they're basically her and Jay Smith and one of the girls that was with Jay Smith most of the time.
hmm.
These two girls are mostly doing this thing called DCCI Ministries or something like that. And
Nice.
apparently, she critiqued the recent debate that happened between James White and Adnan Rashid on on the cross.
Yeah.
Is the cross necessary for salvation? And her critique was basically that they were being all. It wasn't a debate. They were just trying to be formal and nice and giving gifts occasionally to each other while just simply talking, while we have debated out in the open heat by shouting and providing points, and even showing how if they're going to criticize the Bible, then we should criticize Muhammad in the same way. So basically, all she thought debate was, or what would be beneficial, is just free form shouting matches. Um, that's basically what she said was debate, and that what James White did in a formal debate not only was not a debate, but that it doesn't benefit people.
I
So
mean, shouting matches. I don't know that sounds like something that the ISUPK would love to do because that's what they did when I debated them. So,
yeah,
and anybody can
I can't
watch
imagine
both
you
those.
shouting. By the way,
Oh man. Yeah, I pretty much, just get really loud. But yeah, I mean when it comes to debating, I think that on Debate Talk for You, there's been so much debating that now I'm noticing that things are changing. And I was to blame partially for that because when I came on Debate Talk for You, I tried to do like discussions. I had my own format called a So Real format. Read a scripture, expound on it, and ask a question. And they'd have to answer. They go back and forth, and all of a sudden the same person would do the same thing.
yeah.
And then after that there was just dialogues. But I think after a while, when it came to the next season, now all of a sudden there's this thing called facts where people will just kind of go, you'll listen to what they say for like I guess like 5 minutes, and you'll only have to state facts.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that I guess I'm just watching how people move, so what was all like fire and debate years ago, now people are like calming down. And now they're starting to just more like dialogue. Okay, I was a little emotional. What did you say when you said that one passage? Oh, well, I said this over here. Oh, okay. And all of a sudden, now that everyone's got like, I don't know, the rocks off or whatever you want to call it, now all of a sudden everyone's like kind of starting to talk and dialogue and kind of go back and forth. And, now I still think that, formal debates do have its fruit. I think it has its place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind doing it. I just know that it just seems like a lot of people are in a place now in 2018 that they're in a place where they really just want to slow down and be like, hey, time out, time out. What do you mean when you say that?
Right.
And so that's why Arcane Logos is looking at, Faithful like, well, no, I don't want to do that anymore right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've done enough of that. Can we just talk? And Faithful, he wants to go and have a formal debate. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. Whatever floats your boat. It's just after so much, people are just in a different spot now.
Yeah,
I mean, they really want to know, like, okay, can we walk this out?
Yeah. Here's what I think needs to happen. That y'all two, you and Arcane, need to have a discussion next. Because apparently what I also noticed in the conversation is that he sort of almost tried to go about, well, I'm a white guy talking about this, as if that's supposed to somehow be a problem or an issue, even though one of the guys that supported Hebrew Israelite theology that I talked to last before Arcane was a white guy. Negi Springfield, Torah Knights. This was a white guy. So race is no freaking problem when it comes to the issue. So I think it would probably be a little beneficial. And plus, you have actually studied this longer than I have. That you and Arcane need to talk about this particular issue about the Hebrew Israelites issue and what were the color the Egyptians and the Israelites. And maybe go about the law, because that's the one thing that he tried going about as well toward the end of the discussion. So yeah, hopefully maybe y'all two can get that going one day. We're getting some more people coming in. We have Wyatt Mickus, who's been a while since he's last joined us. And then we have the Sister Hipster, who has joined us with her hipsterousness.
I have no idea who these people are.
Well, congratulations. You have been introduced. Sister Hipster, Wyatt, Surreal. Surreal, Wyatt, Sister Hipster.
Hello.
Oh, for goodness sake, he puts his camera on.
Mm-hmm. You like my Assassin's Creed hood? Mm.
Oh, for goodness. You mean the Desmond hood? It's not Assassin's Creed if it's not got that cowl, like arrow pulling down thing like an eagle. Plus, you need a hidden blade. Then I'll believe you.
You're looking on in blades, yes. In blades.
All right. So
Don't lose a finger.
don't lose a finger. Nope. Let's see here, though. I want to get to answer a couple questions in the live chat because I noticed while we were talking, we had some interesting ones. One of which I had to put a user in timeout for because I ain't having silliness right now. Richard Wise asks, what do you think of the verse in Romans 13, which is just Romans 13 in general for the first 7 verses, talking about obeying governing authorities? Because it said, what's this? Because I know he said one. Because it says obeying the governing authorities, but I always thought, what about Hitler and people like that? Love me some Jesus, but hate me some unjust authority, you know? So, okay. Concerning what the Bible says, it says that that God ordains every single leader that is appointed, including sometimes wicked rulers. As John Calvin said, sometimes even for this purpose, that God wants to punish a nation, he sends them wicked rulers. And we see this has actually occurred in the Bible when wicked rulers like Nebuchadnezzar and all these other kings had come and taken over these certain lands where the Israelites were, because the Israelites had fled from God and had disobeyed him, and they were punished with wicked rulers. So there are times where, just simply that every single person in authority, is ordained by God, and the Bible clearly says that. And what it says by it doesn't say simply of obeying every single thing and like submitting your conscience to it. It just simply says to, submit to the governing authorities in the sense of recognizing that that is your government. Now, you don't have to agree with every single thing that is stated by your government, such as abortion or any of these other issues. But note that still that the governing authorities we submit to, because there is no authority except from God, and that those that exist are instituted by God, as the King James, or not as the Holman Christian Standard Bible says. The King James says ordained of God, which is strong in language in my opinion, and that whoever resists the power resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Will thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. So it's simply saying, do that which is good. You should have no problem. You should have no fear from what these governments do. So as long as you try to be a good citizen. But if, and this is what we see in instances such as with Peter after the day after Pentecost, and they're going around proclaiming the gospel, they disobey a law that is instituted from the Jews that say, don't go around talking about Jesus. Don't talk about this dead man. And they do so because they say, when it comes to the decision between God and man, we must obey God rather than man. And that's where the hierarchy institute is established. Unless God specifically reveals and ordains something to you versus what this government says on the matter, then you have to realize that there is a constitutional hierarchy. God makes this very clear. And one of the things is, the parents, is you have parents that are your authority as a child, but also then the parents are succeeded by another higher authority, which is government. And so then there's a higher authority over government, and that is God. So over those issues, by just simply using parent to government alone, if there's something that the government says is something, then they're more authoritative than the parents. But if God says something and has revealed it in his word that is different than what a specific government teaches, then that is where God is more important and succeeds over the declarational statement of morality from the government in that instance. But otherwise, issues like do not kill. So if you were, say, living in Nazi Germany and one of the laws is do not kill, then you don't kill. And that's it.
I like popcorn.
Or like, what?
I like popcorn.
I figured. Who doesn't like popcorn? I'm trying to figure out why that's the case, though. Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe
I'm
I'm
just
like
gonna-
Israelite.
Popcorn.
I swear, you bring up Hebrew Israelite again, Christian man, I will not hesitate to bring my Bible thumping bazooka launcher and unleash 50 Bibles on you just right now.
NIV.
Oh, for goodness sake! Kill my eardrums with that mess, why don't you? All right. That being said, all right. So let's get to some questions in here. So we're going by order, of course, and we already had Christian Man ask his in the live chat. So by that means, we're going straight to Surreal, then to Sister Hipster. So Surreal, welcome to Ask Christian Anarchist number 58. I think this, I don't know, you've actually been in the first one that I've done of these, but it's been a while. So that was number 1. This is 58. Congratulations for being 57 years late to the party.
Well, I was on the first one.
Yo,
I didn't
yeah.
even know.
Yeah, we had Christian Hillbilly in that one, and that was having that guy in a hangout is just hilarious. When especially he just likes to be rude and interrupt people.
I've been gone for 57 years. I'm back. I'm sorry.
You're good, man. All right, so you got a question for me, Mike?
Yes. Trying to think. So my question for you, my friend, is what was the nastiest thing that you ever ate?
The nastiest thing I ever ate?
Yep.
Good question.
Or drank.
Trying to think. I'll just go ahead and say that what I drank was that Pierre sparkling water. I saw some at a park that we were at, and I decided to try some because hey, sparkling water, let's try this. It looks like Sprite. My goodness, I wanted to throw
Water
up.
tastes weird.
Yeah, I wanted to throw up. That's how bad it was. I think I nearly did.
Sparkling water didn't make me throw, but it's not my cup of tea.
What's it called again?
It's French. It's Pierre.
Pierre sparkling water.
Yeah.
Because we France are more sophisticated than you dumb Americans.
Mm-hmm.
More like pee without the air.
Oh
Yeah.
man. I'm trying to think.
That's nasty.
I'm trying to think though. What is that?
Don't drink Pierre. You know, I heard that in Africa, that there was the drink called Fanta. I remember the commercials here in America.
Want the Fanta?
Like,
Don't you want Fanta?
Now here's the thing. My one of my mentors, who's an African drummer, he goes over to Senegal every year, and he said, "Man, it's like Matt, if you ever go to Senegal, don't drink the Fanta. They'll try to get you hooked on it. Oh yeah, you want some Fanta? Nah, there's stories where people be putting like cocaine in the Fanta, and that's the reason why people keep going back to it. They just think they like it and all that stuff. Nah, like they put stuff in there, so that way people keep coming back to it. So it's like when everyone like comes up with all the orange soda, you want some Fanta? Like, nah, just pass by, like, unless you want to get addicted. But yeah.
All right. Well, reminds me not to try some of these things. I'm still trying to. I'll just leave it with the drink because I can't think of anything that I've eaten that was. I could actually do that. this thing called these fast bites. They're supposed to be like these chicken sandwiches little tiny chicken sandwiches that you could put in the microwave, cook it for a minute, and it's ready to go with a fast bite. The buns never heat up the same way with the chicken. So the chicken could be nice and heated up and a little sometimes soggy from the juices that's being baked and cooked. And while the buns is still hot and on the same temperature, they still feel like they could break your teeth. So every time that happens, I have to take the bun apart and just eat a chicken patty that is midget sized. And it's not delicious either, because then I notice there's just too much juice on that sucker that make it kind of like it's more salty.
It just reminded me of like a bunch of minions eating those little mini burgers or something.
Yeah, and so I don't know. That would be my food that I've eaten that's disgusting, and I'm never ordering those again. Which sucks too, because I like chicken. And that's the one chicken item I cannot eat.
Fried chicken or baked?
Fried, man. Who you kidding?
Yes. Fried chicken. We're fried chicken brothers.
We are fried chicken brothers. What, you fried chicken brother too?
Yes.
Fried chicken trio.
My fried chicken tastes bomb, especially with some Memphis barbecue sauce.
Wait, your fried chicken?
Mm-hmm.
You make fried chicken?
Yeah, man. I bake mine nice and slow.
I am coming over to your house in a few minutes. Just give me a sec after this broadcast ends.
I'm gonna teleport. One day we will be able to do that. We'll have an app for it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm serious, man. I've seen apps where people lick their phones and you could taste certain flavors. Have y'all seen that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. YouTube it. People are having this app where you can actually taste the flavor of something, and I don't know. It does something with the electrons and the chemicals that are already in your phone, and
I highly doubt it.
It's nuts.
Yeah, I think that's scientifically impossible. They're probably just leading you on, man.
Probably.
Hi, by the way.
I don't know. I mean, people do it. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah.
You're being asked in the chat if you guys like White Castle. Hopefully, it's the restaurant and not the movie.
What's the movie?
Oh man, White Castle's near my place, so yeah, I sometimes I like going there.
I've had I haven't been to the place itself, but I have had chicken sliders from that because there are some places that have freezer sections that contain like burgers and chicken patty sliders of White Castle. But I haven't actually gone to a White Castle itself, and I imagine that would actually have a more genuine, authentic flavor. Because I've had the mac and Cheetos versus the Burger King version, and there's a difference than when you go buy them at the store versus getting them at the restaurant. So, yeah. But anyways, enough about this food talk. Thank you for the question, Surreal. We're gonna move on to, for those who are in the live chat, submit more of your questions. We got one more on standby, but we need a lot more than just simply those few bits of questions. So theological questions or anything like that, that's hopefully what we're trying to push for. Come on. Send them up, people. Send them up. Send them up.
Well, you got one.
Yeah, I know, but we're going to need a lot more than just that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So till then, we're going to go to two people in here. So starting with Sister Hipster. Sister, how are you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah.
I'm doing good. All right. So, what's your question today?
I had some, but I have to write these questions down every once in a while. your thoughts on Jordan Peterson?
All right, give me a sec. Okay. Jordan Peterson, I think, is I'm finding out a lot more about him. Like, found out that he's Christian and that he's recently spoken at an event that was at the Trump Tower with James White. They shared a stage together. James White and his daughter Summer White. And it was sponsored by the Sovereign Nations, which is the same group that helped to get the debate scheduled up between James White and Adnan Rashid. And Jordan Peterson spoke at this particular event.
Did you
at the
say
Trump Tower.
sovereign nation?
Yes.
Why did like a image of a swastika come to my mind when I first heard that?
I don't know, and I don't understand why you'd get that.
I thought Jordan Peterson wasn't a Christian. He just kind of like.
Oh no, he's identified as a Christian before, in some of his lectures, and then he's actually done a thing where he's discussed the benefits of religion and Christianity specifically, and he's even done concerning his specific podcast a study of the Bible from a clinical psychologist perspective, which I don't think is able to do too much. But either way, he's pretty much trying to do a whole study on the Bible. Like right now, I see that they're up to number 13 in the biblical series, where it's 2 hours and 33 minutes talking about Jacob's ladder. Or something like that.
Well, it's that. Well, I did a check on Cain and Abel out of curiosity. Well, some of research purposes as well. But he talks about some other things other than just that.
Right.
I don't know what his obsession is with women getting married and then having babies. Kind of dumb. Whatever.
Wait, what?
He always gets on this topic almost like almost a 1950s conservative view that women should get married at a younger age and start having kids, and there's like logical reasons for it, and I'm like, really, dude?
Well, he's mostly focusing on, because he, like he says, he is a clinical psychologist, and he's focusing on the perspective from a psychologist's perspective, and based on what he would say would be statistics and polls, that there are some people, based on the numbers, that not only are benefiting mentally but physically from trying what he is suggesting, and that people that aren't in that position don't exactly get the same kind of mental benefits and such. So that's what he's basing that off of, is just simply that. And he's actually discussed this sort of thing on when he had the conversation with Kathy Newman, and Kathy Newman, of course, strawmans and takes what he says completely out of context.
We should run our society by lobsters?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No.
In short, basically, that nut knows what the heck he's talking about.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I could help out. The reason why Jordan Peterson says that you need, that the practical ages or the prime ages to get married is between the age of 18 to 35, is because as soon as you reach the age of 35, on average, not everybody, on average, in the entire population of Earth, as of the recent century, your mentality slows down, your intelligence slows down, your IQ diminishes, your attractiveness to, or your attraction to other mates is reduced, but of course a lot of people are attracted till the age of 85, but that's a different matter. But on average, he's talking about averages. And so if you roll, your peak time to look for the optimum mate for yourself is when you're actually fertile. Men are fertile with their sperm, and women are fertile with their egg, and you're mentally able to be intellectual with one another. You're able to you're able to keep up with the kids if you had them. You could, it goes on and on. That's why, but as soon as you reach 35, like I'm 36, if I meet a person at my age, because I'm not married, then I'm essentially just looking to, I'm not looking for anybody to share a bed with. It's just more or less someone to belong to at my point.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm not looking for kids anymore at my age.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're between 18 to 35, then, like, hey, you can still have kids and, and they'll be 18 by the time you reach 45 or something like that. That kind of thing. It's peak efficiency kind of thing. It's striking while the iron is hot, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I guess it's because it kind of gives me an anxiety attack. I'm like, my anxiety level just went off the chart to just telling me that.
Right. Well, here's the thing. There are some people that I've noticed when Jordan Peterson says these things, there's some people that, especially on the progressive left, that will, as soon as they hear these things, just go ballistic as to what Peterson says. So, and this is not just him, but if you listen to what Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Steven Crowder have said, there are times where they are just simply citing facts by showing the statistics and the polls and the numbers about what things going under the Trump administration are doing, or what is the unemployment rate right now under the Trump administration, all these kinds of things. As soon as these things are talked about, they have these type of anxiety attacks in which they start criticizing and thinking that all of a sudden they hate women or they hate black people or something because they're bringing this up. And it's just simply that if you listen to what's been said and what's the context and the purpose of it, and that's what I think Jordan Peterson tries to do whenever he says these things, because he goes into detail about it, and he's done that before when talking to Kathy Newman about these specific issues. And it's why we should just simply listen completely to what's being said, then formulate our thoughts based on what is stating.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But yeah, thank you for your question there. Oh my goodness, I see we have G-Man tonight. His question: is hyper-Calvinism a false theology? Yes, because we've actually had a chance to talk with a hyper-Calvinist before. What was his name?
That dog guy with the dog icon?
No, though I would most certainly classify him in that specific camp, even though he would at first he almost said he kind of denied it, but the fruits speak otherwise. A guy who just simply called himself Hyper Calvinist was his name, and you can actually find him on there was a Skylar Fiction took his channel content down because he said he left YouTube and the Google Plus community. But Steve McRae actually had, after that conversation, talked with Hyper Calvinist, and I've actually talked to Hyper Calvinist when he was by another name. You can actually look this up on my podcast, and it showed that it gets you nowhere, because he pretty much is he's a primitive Baptist, basically, and what they are basically theological Nazis is what a primitive Baptist is, because they basically are obsessed with, do you believe in the doctrine of particular redemption and sovereign grace, and if you don't, then you're a heretic. So and apparently they say Reformed Baptists like James White are actually Roman Catholic Jesuit synergists that believe in works-based salvation, and that they believe that you could lose your salvation. According to these guys, that's what James White supposedly believes. And they'll say the same thing about R.C. Sproul, Martin Luther, and all these other people. But it's like, oh, John Gill, Tobias Crisp, these people that were hyper-Calvinists aren't unsaved reprobates. They are actually Christians. So you have to be a hyper-Calvinist to be Christian, according to some of these people. And that's a bad theology. And there's actually a book that is from a Reformed library, or from a Reformed perspective, and it's on Chapel Library. So go to chapellibrary.org, and you can even order this for free to be mailed to you, called The Killing Effects of Hyper Calvinism by Bob Ross. And Bob Ross is a very good author. He has written, if it's the same Bob Ross that I'm thinking about, it's the guy that has written biographies on Charles Spurgeon and has a website dedicated to the writings of Charles Spurgeon to be sold, as well as he has written articles on a website refuting the King James only movement. So
does he do painting in his pastime?
Huh? I get what you did there, Bob Ross. Yeah, I see what you did there. But no, like he has sections like that. Hyper Calvinism kills gospel preaching to the lost. It kills prayer. It kills a grateful spirit. It kills daily watchfulness. It kills the forbearance to weaker brethren.
It kills.
Yeah, so there are the killing effects of hyper Calvinism. It is a dangerous and poisonous society. Or not society, of
murder, death, kill,
religious theology.
Yeah.
So
I've heard of All for His Glory. That's actually no. I talked to him about 5 years ago a few times, and he denies being called a hyper Calvinist, but he'll go right into it.
So. Oh yeah, that's why I said that, because he used to be my mentor and teacher whenever I started off as a Calvinist, but I slowly got away from him once I started seeing more of these hypocritical doctrines of his. And
personally, I used to fight Calvinists and mark them for death, essentially, with a passion several years ago. But I've knocked it off. The Holy Spirit corrected me. But all for it shouldn't be focused on all for His glory, like you were just explaining. It should be defended on its own, and it can't really defend itself, because otherwise, as you were just alluding to, there would be no point to life in the end. If it was hyper Calvinism, there'd be no point to life. Because if you're living out something that was already not just preordained and not just pre-allowed and admitted and accepted by God, but actually every single breath you take was actually premeditatively configured and programmed into your entire history and your entire life, and every second of your day was planned out, then love doesn't exist. It doesn't. And there's no point to bother looking to save people with the gospel, because love is an illusion. If you're just programmed, it is. There's no way around it. So that's one of the reasons why that is the reason why there is still a major opposition to any kind of Calvinism. If someone says they're a Calvinist, every single person who is opposed to it, they immediately perk their brain up to the one time they met a hyper Calvinist, and that's what they're retaliating against.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really amusing hearing regular conservative Calvinists like yourselves come up and say, whoa, we don't believe that. That's heresy. It's like, well, no, duh, but that's what everybody hears.
Exactly, and I think it's mostly due to the age of the internet. Calvinist is what I would call it. That there's a lot of people that would. It's like there's an infection of what we would call the cage stage Calvinists. Like you have a bunch of people that are like saying, as they've just discovered Calvinism, and all of a sudden they're going, "Tulip, let's get that election."
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! I just went Alex Jones there.
The frogs are turning gay.
I'll tell you what they're doing. They're putting chemicals in the water that are turning the freaking frogs Armenian.
Alex Jones is not always but wrong, but he is rather eccentric. So.
Yeah. Well,
Aliens.
Too, aliens. There's a video. What if you take Alex Jones' rant, and turn all the rants into indie song lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes Alex Jones just random things that Alex Jones does and puts it in like the artist they have to make it sound like is a Bon Iver. And so it's like, I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murdering scum that run giant death factories, keeping babies alive and selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face these scum, and then says they literally crawl from under rocks and have green looking skin, and they run around screaming, "We love Satan. We want to eat your babies." That is a rant that got turned into hippie indie lyrics, and it's hilarious. All right.
I want to cry.
You and me both. All right. So thanks for your question there, G-Man. Let's answer one more question on the live chat, because I'm seeing we got a lot of people that are typing some stuff up. Richard Wise asked something earlier. How can one be born again? You're born again by the work of the Holy Spirit, and you receive the Holy Spirit, as it says, you're saved by grace through faith alone, and faith comes by hearing, and hearing of the word of God.
Hallelujah!
There you go. So you hear the gospel message.
Yeah, like I answered it by saying, by believing the gospel, but you can't make yourself believe, because I've had several people, or at least two people in the last 2 months say, "Well, how do I believe? How do I believe? How do I?" So I answered the guy tonight before he even asked the question. I'm sorry if you wouldn't have asked the question, but it usually pops up. So I'm sorry, but it usually pops up. How do you believe? And you can no more tell yourself and make yourself believe than you can, if you can see, then you can tell yourself to see the color blue.
Right.
I'm sorry, but you can't say, like, if you're not colorblind, or if you're not blind, period, but you actually see colors, you can no more make yourself, see and believe the gospel than you can, hey, I think my favorite color is green. You can't, because it has to be, your eyes have to be opened to the color of the gospel.
I mean, he's asking, how do I believe? Like, man, like when I hear stuff like that, it's either he's really being really genuine, or he's really just kind of like, I don't know, just doing this for like a hobby or something.
Wait, hold on.
Like, he really doesn't.
Wait, hold on, Cyril. Hello, Simone, or Shimon, or however you pronounce.
Timon.
Hold on. Wait, hold on. Is this Wolves Are Cool? We can't hear you. Your mic is muted at the moment, so.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Is this Wolves?
Hello.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem.
Estrogen.
Your voice sounds happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard the live stream, Wolves, or Chimon, or Simone, or
Where
however.
are you from?
Oh, for goodness sake!
It's Simone.
Where you from?
Well, I used to live in Atlanta, but now I live in Alabama.
That almost sounds like it rhymes there. Atlanta, Alabama. Like just missing on a
Hang your
few
mama.
letters. But for goodness sake, Surreal. I'll knock you out by the end of the podcast. All right. We're gonna go let me see.
Well, you were asked earlier, what is your opinion of study Bibles, and what would your opinion or suggestion of the most appropriate study Bible for King James or whatever?
That's a good one. I'm of course gonna be this guy. I have two to recommend. There's the Reformation Heritage Study Bible. It is a King James Study Bible that focuses from the Calvinistic Reformed perspective with the study notes, but also offers a history of just Protestant Reformed theology in general. But if you want something that gives you a good basis of just a general overview of the exegetical notes and want to study issues like maps and specific historical context, there's the Holman Illustrated or the Holman Study Bible in the King James Version. It is one of the big ones out there for the King James Version, and it is a very popular one, and for a very good reason. It's a study Bible that draws you in, and you have a lot of the information there, including maps and pictures, like including if I'm remembering correctly, like the map of the path of the Exodus. What did the Jewish temple look like during the time of Jesus? These kinds of things that we kind of get a glimpse at. So those are two study Bibles for the King James Version that I would recommend. So whoever asked that question in the live chat, hopefully that answers that.
Or you can be like me and go, ew, King James.
What's wrong with King James?
Nobody can understand it.
I can.
James is the greatest translation of all time, and anyone who
Right. Get tongue tied with the thee thoueth shutteth up it.
I can understand it, but I agree. There are some people that can't understand it, which is why I'm not a King James onlyist. And I think there are some people that should just, if you can't read the King James or understand it, then at least get like an NASB, an ESV, an ISV, or whatever helps you out.
ESV.
You cannot understand it where thither thou goeth.
Yeah,
they're out of here.
Yeah, I would add to the suggestions about study Bibles that if you have to pay for it, don't pay any more than $50 unless it's programmed like BibleWorks, but or eSword, but because those actually put out what's worth $500, $2,000, the eSword, the online software, but when it comes to paperback, don't pay any more than $50. Like I've seen pastors, selling their, from my mouth to yours, from my table to yours for $200, for $500.
That's a scary
I'm
phrase.
sorry, but that's a scam because you are paying for their input of what they have understood from their studies. No, what you actually want is something from an actual university, from the scholars and from the historians, from the architects who have actually studied it and given you a paper from an amalgamation of different people, not just one pastor.
I still can't get past the part where he said, from my mouth to yours.
Hey, hold on, you guys.
Oh, there you go. Huh?
Hold on, guys. I'll be right back.
The commercial has died.
I'll meet you guys in the after party.
Okay. I'll
In
see
the
you there.
afterlife.
Well, we got about 45 minutes left. So for those who are watching in the live chat, feel free to get y'all's questions submitted. Because we will only have 45 minutes left before
Simone, it's all your fault.
No, it's not. Leave her out of this. My goodness.
You're mean.
He is mean. I'm not mean. What you talking about? Anyways, let's check some of these questions because apparently now we got a discussion between a Kuster Rogburn and a Ronald Deal. I am at a loss for words. Watchman on the Wall says, didn't you say that it was God's will for the Las Vegas shooter to kill people? Oh, I have a very good feeling as to who this person is. So far, I only know of one individual that I've mentioned that to, and that would be Jamal Williams. So I don't know if maybe Watchman on the Wall is connected to him. I think that in the terms of the decretive will, meaning things that come to pass, anything that comes to pass, is part of God's decretive will. I've made the proper distinction between the decretive will and the prescriptive will. Meaning my prescriptive will, things such as commandments and ordinances and things that have been declared, do not do this and do not do that. So by that, but the prescriptive will, it was not part of God's will, but the decretive will, it is God's will. That's what I'm saying when I say that it was God's will for the Las Vegas shooter killing the people that were there. And the same thing can be said about what concerning the crucifixion. The most sinful thing that happened being that an innocent person was crucified and killed and set up by the Jewish officials, and was decreed by the Roman leader to be crucified. Welcome back. And he was declared to go out and crucify this person, Jesus, and who was sinless and innocent. But the Bible says that he was ordained to be crucified before the foundation of the world, that this was preordained. And people have no problem with that because the work of the cross is in the redemption of man, in the forgiveness of sins, and the blotting out of sins. They have no problem with that thing being preordained, as the Bible would say. But when it comes to concerning the decretive will of God for, say, the shooter of Las Vegas, to kill those people, that was a decreed incident, then all of a sudden heads turn, even though concerning a point, they have no problem then just allowing Jesus, an innocent man, to be crucified by bad people. They have no problem with that being a thing that has been ordained. So yes, I did say at one point that God decreed from the decretive will, not the prescriptive will, that the Las Vegas shot those people. So again, I'm making proper distinctions. And if you're going to, and if you end up criticizing me saying that, then if you believe that it was ordained or come to pass that Christ would be crucified, an innocent man who did nothing wrong and is killed by these people for nothing, for on their standards, they just trying to kill him because they don't like him. Why then should I not criticize that statement? Again, what I notice when this is going on is inconsistent atheistic logic. It's trying to blame God for things that have happened. And I used to be the same way about concerning the issue about Jesus. I thought, if I were to go back in time, I would kill these Jews and rescue Jesus. But that's terrible thinking, because what does the Bible say, and what is the purpose in the ordination of this? We, however, can't know too much about the purpose of the ordination of any disaster that goes on, but we know that there's still a purpose, and sometimes even out of tragedies, good things can occur, such as Genesis 50:20. There was actually somebody that posted this earlier on Twitter, an artist named Alexia, and mentioned this verse where Joseph is speaking to the brothers that sold him into slavery. They basically kidnapped him. That's
my favorite story.
Yeah, they sold him into slavery. But in Genesis 50:20, he says, "What you thought was you did unto evil, God had used unto good." So basically saying that God had ordained the very act of him being sold as a slave, being sold and that's a sin, by the way, is to kidnap and sell people into these factories or to these institutes. That was a sin, and God used that to save people from a famine. So Joseph had no problem with seeing that about his own circumstances. So I don't know why you bring up that as a question, or as if that's supposed to be something that puts a nail in a coffin in a theology or anything like that. Because if that's the case, then I'm sorry, but you're just arguing like an atheist. If that's your whole case. I mean, because I can go Genesis 50:20, I can go to the crucifixion and other instances where things had been done under where bad circumstances have happened, but God uses them to bring about a good. So
it's just going down the same rabbit hole as, if God existed, then why did the Black Plague happen? If God existed, then why did the Philippines flood happen? If God existed, then why did Hitler and Mao kill, and Stalin kill, a fraction of the world's population? It sounds like that's where it's going.
It does.
No offense to the person who asked, but that's the same. It's similar reasoning.
Absolutely. All right. Well, before we get to any of the live chat questions, by the way, we got about 40 minutes left for the show before we start wrapping things up. So, Simone, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm doing pretty well. I trying to make sure I'm not choking because I still am coughing up after trying to recover. But
it's not every day that I hear someone get my name right.
What? Nobody gets the name right? What do they say before then?
Well, the way it's spelled, sometimes they'll be like, is it, how do you say it? Because it's spelled with a C, because normally it's spelled with an S. Yeah, so my name is
another way is a Simone.
It's Simone, but it's spelled with a C. Simone.
Well, it's a nice name. I will say that.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm sure it has a meaning, but I don't really know what it means.
Well, who knows? Yeah, I'm sure there's a good meaning for it. But I do
believe it's a Hebrew.
I'll have to look that up then. Well, while I'm doing that, I am going to put you on the spot. Do you have a question you'd like to ask?
Let's see. Dude, about last night. Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that you watched. So I feel sorry for you seeing that, by the way. Because oh my goodness. I don't know.
I missed the beginning but I heard the rest of it though. Yeah, I was like, is this dude for real?
Unfortunately, yeah, he's been the same kind of way about the flat Earth issue. He takes it to a very heavy extreme. So he's kind of very insulting.
That's false teaching right there.
Yeah. I just actually took a look at the Hebrew name, by the way. It's, with the S, Simon is a Hebrew name. And according to She Knows, it says the meaning of the name is loud.
Loud?
At least that's what I see.
Is it under the name like Simon?
Well, it's spelled the same way except with the S, as you mentioned that there was an S. And then on another website, though, it says one who has heard.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So I don't know. They're gonna have to make some kind of official website and get the dictionary straight for that particular one. But yeah. So do you got a question?
When I was hearing the guy tell us, like, is this dude is this dude serious? Like, where, especially like with those pictures he was showing, I'm like, okay, where's the source? Like, where's the proof? Like,
right.
like, come on, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I kept bringing this up to him. I don't know if you heard this part, but I could do the same thing for Jesus mythicism. I could just go to a website and prove, that Jesus is a copycat of other pagan religions, and to just go to these different images where, you see like a meme that shows that Horus and Jesus were supposedly part of the Trinity. They were both crucified. They both had 12 disciples. They both preached repentance and all these other things. But he admitted that that's not how you do actual research on that. But now all of a sudden the standards change when it's dealing with the identity of the Hebrews and the Egyptians.
And it was interesting because I'm like, so are you telling me that let's see, the part about was it from Shem, that if African Americans were from Shem or Ham?
Yeah, the whole issue about Shem and Ham. As Faithful tried to point out, this was like his issue is trying to what is called the Hamitic hypothesis, that the whole thing about the Egyptians being black, and same thing with Israelites, basically supposed to stem all with Ham or something like that, as far as what I've heard.
The African Americans came from Ham because Cush, he's the one who's was created the whole chain of African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So the Cushites were black.
Right.
And so isn't Narubians,
Nubians.
Yeah, Nubians. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, African Americans came from Ham. It's like it's right there, and I look in the Bible. One clue is Moses married a black woman, Zipporah. So okay, so if it wasn't true, then his Moses' brother and sister, Miriam and Aaron, that wouldn't have objected to Moses marrying, Zipporah. So that should give you a clue right there.
What I have a problem with, or not a problem with, but I find it odd, is that I'm the one who called Arcane last night a bigot, but I'll stand by it. If a person is restricting their mental capacity on a concept of race that is 4,500 years old, back to the point of Ham, as if nobody from that family line has ever bred them or multiplied with an Asian or an Oriental or a Germanic or anybody who's white. That's just ludicrous to say 4,500 years later, they have a pure line. That's pure faith right there.
And what did God do to Miriam when she started criticizing Moses because of Zipporah's skin color? What did he do to Miriam?
Mm-hmm.
He gave her leprosy.
Yeah, and it was actually interesting, and I didn't mention this, but there's actually a scholarly citation on why specifically this punishment, and it notes that it's pretty much trying to be kind of like a sort of attack on
right.
Like, you criticized her for skin color, you didn't kind of get the same
exactly.
thing happening to you.
Exactly. Then. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like I said, I've tried to discuss this with people. I've discussed it with probably one of the most rational of this one crazy hypocritical hypocritical, crazy group. And you can actually look up on my channel. There's a discussion between a guy named Vocab Malone, and he talks to this group of people called the Torah Knights. Surreal knows and has actually talked with the Torah Knights, so he's familiar with this group that I'm about to mention. And the Torah Knights are basically nothing but online people that are Old Testament only, and think that the New Testament is this book invented with lies about Jesus, because they believe Jesus was a Torah teacher that taught from a Levite tribe as a Torah teacher. And so they basically are making their own version of Jesus and think that the Jesus in the New Testament portrays Jesus as a leader of a penis worshipping cult. That's what they believe Christianity is, that Christianity is a religion that worships the penis of Jesus.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I kid you not. This is what they affirm, and they mention that in the beginning, but they just go about trying to, say Deuteronomy 28 refers to black people because it says they were sent in ships. How were black people sent to America? Through ships. You can't ignore this logic. And whenever he tried to respond, he said, no, you can't speak. We just cut your head off. We just cut your head off right there. Which that's their code of saying that they refuted you, supposedly, is that they say that they cut your head off, or when they say they're about to refute what you said, they say, all right, get ready, because we're about to cut your head off.
Wow.
Yeah. And as soon as one of the leaders took a Hebrew New Testament and started saying, you see this New Testament? It's nothing but pagan garbage. You wipe your butt with it. And he starts rubbing this New Testament that's written in Hebrew on his rear end on camera. And Vocab's like, you know what? If you're just gonna act like a child, I'm leaving, because he had more time. He had better things to do than waste time with that. And as soon as that, he said, yeah, bye, get out of here. You're nothing but a demon. And then at the end says, I hope that I hope that God sends the KKK to cut your heads off, because I'm sick of you pagan demons.
That's disrespectful.
Oh yeah. So these kinds of guys are very violent and very crazy. And that's what I notice, is that most of them is down to word games and trying to be insulting for most of the part.
For what I recall of ever reading the Old Testament or Torah or whatever they want to call it, unless God actually directly charges his people to go and invade and kill territory directly by prophecy, and it's always a specific city or nation, then they have no reason and no rationality to go and attack anybody of color. Because I'm pretty sure in some Judaic countries in the Old Testament, they were actually ordered by God to dwell and be peaceful with other nations. But these people seem to be on fire to hate and to threaten and to have a passion to want to kill you. And yet God has never ordained them to do so.
We need to. These people need to be prayed for, because it's obviously they're not reading the Bible right. They really need to sit down and read the Bible, because the Bible, to me, the Bible is full of amazing stories. It's amazing stuff in the Bible. I mean, I read the Bible. I'm trying to read the Bible every day now, and I've read I just read Matthew through Mark for school. I still find it refreshing to me. It's amazing. The Bible is amazing. It's an amazing book, and it's full of truth, and it makes me sad when people like that, take the Bible out of context.
That's actually a doctrine of theirs to do that. It's called the precept upon precept doctrine. Like I said, Surreal studies and has engaged with these guys a lot longer than I have. He's a member of a group called the Shield Squad, which is a Christian apologetics group that deals specifically with the Hebrew Israelite group. And their teachings is basically, you know, the Bible is such a unique book that it can't be read like like any other book. You don't read it. You don't read it from verse 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. You're supposed to read. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, "But precept must be upon precept," and they basically take that to mean if you're going to read it or something on a topic, you go to one verse, ignore context, go to a verse somewhere else that speaks similarly in wording or speaks similarly about the topic. So basically, they'll just take what a verse says about the slave ships and then just go somewhere else without continuing to read. And they think that this is biblical and that this is what God ordains as a justified form of exegesis. But when you go to context, it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't read it like that. You're dishonoring the word of God by doing that. Precept must be upon precept. So they hate going into context because of this whole precept upon precept doctrine. And Surreal and Faithful to God have both refuted this particular thing by examining what is exactly meant by that verse that is mentioned.
Yeah, I just want to make maybe not a shout out, but a reference to G-Man if you're still there, howdy. But I watched G-Man's video earlier. I think it's his most recent one, and he's sitting in his couch and he's talking about the hypocrisy of these people and how they teach and how they speak, and they're very adamant and passionate against anybody saying the name Jesus, especially with a J.
Yeah,
and yet he points out that they're okay with naming James, Jacob, Jerusalem, you know, anything else with the letter J, but don't call him Jesus. Yeah, it's got to be Yahweh. And then I posted in his comments on the video saying, if these guys are so hateful of the white man, then what are they doing speaking English? I'm sorry, but English was a bastardized mutated language of the European white people. Oh, I'm sorry, but they should only like G-Man did say, G-Man did say in his video, you guys should only be speaking Hebrew. So I just elaborated, yeah, they should only be speaking Hebrew if they want to come correct.
That is hilarious.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we explained a bit of what these guys are. So I kind of forgot what. Did you ask a question in there? I want to make sure I answer it before moving on. And I don't know if I ended up losing and getting lost into something that wasn't part of what you asked.
CA, I was thinking about something, and this is real quick. Have you ever asked anybody why do they believe what they believe? What led them to become what they become?
I've asked that of people most of the time. Like I asked this about the Hebrew Israelites that I encountered. I've asked this about Arminians. I've asked this about Methodists and Baptists. I even asked other Calvinists before about why they believe what they believe. So Simone,
Yes.
did I answer it? Did we get a question going, or did I want to make sure I didn't miss anything that you were trying to be curious about, since we only got about 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure everyone's question can be answered satisfactorily tonight.
Man, the only one question I can think of is what possessed them what possessed them to even follow such false doctrine? I mean, why?
Well, like I said earlier, whenever I was before I got to going into the Q&A in general, is that what I believe I see from Arcane and almost every other form of Hebrew Israelite that I've met is that it goes back to the Black nationalism movement. It's that people are upset that slavery happened and that segregation had happened and that there were problems with black rights being taken away in the early days of America. And so movements like this formed to put this whole thing of a superiority over a specific race that puts it on a level of idolatry. When it started off as supposed to be equal rights, then these other groups started forming to be not equal rights, but our rights are more superior than yours, and that we are, as a people, more superior than yours. This is what happened with the Black Panther Party that rose up, being very militant at its time. You have kind of the same thing with what you have with the Hebrew Israelites, because there's a movie that's out on YouTube that's for free called Black Hebrew Israelites Debunked. And
I watched that, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Did you see the whole 2 hours of it, or did you just watch
I saw the whole thing.
My goodness, you had a lot of time on your hands then, because I remember that One Way sent that either this morning or last night.
Well, I started to watch it last night, but I fell asleep. So I'll get up early this morning because I get up early, to feed my dogs, and then I'm outside and stuff like that. So I have to watch it while I had no distractions.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one thing I like about Keith, because Keith does a lot of research before he does that, and he managed to gather all that information and gather them books and citations and study about the origins for the first time within a series of like 6 or 8 months, maybe even less than that. And that's how good he is as a researcher, and why I like his documentaries, like his documentary exposing Roman Catholicism, 8 hours and 25 minutes long. And that's the longest he's ever made of a movie, versus most of them being 2 hours. So he's very talented when it comes to the research. But yeah, as it says in the documentary, that you had Abba Bivens start teaching the idea that black people were the true Israelites. And if you look at even some of the old footage of when ISUPK started off with what was it, Ariara and the guy that called himself King David, and Shar and Jacob and all these others that were starting off, they basically were teaching all these things that were going to happen because, well, you know how the white people treated black people in slavery and captivity? Guess what? It's going to come back around and bite you in the rear end.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah, that's what it's the whole thing. Like even the GMS rape doctrine, the idea that rape is okay as long as reproduction can be done. If you look at the true origins, as Faithful had mentioned, they originally mentioned that they're going to be raping the daughters of these people, just like the Africans' daughters were raped. So
okay,
it all goes.
I'm done with that.
Yeah.
They're disgusting.
It all goes back to, that's why they believe that whenever Jesus returns and kills all the white people, they're then going to be the slaves of black people. It all goes back to this supposed karma instance, and that's all it goes back to, because that's the same. And it's the same thing we see with other black nationalists that want to be this very negative and hostile way about white people and think that everything's being whitewashed. It's not, though. But they have to do that because they want to feel superior and want to think that they're speaking.
That makes them pedophiles too.
Right. Well, this is of course only in the because the only camp that affirms this is GMS, and that's why the leader of that was kicked out of the group, because he started promoting that doctrine. So GMS is the only splinter group out of the various camps that teaches this doctrine. But IUIC, ISUPK, and all these others, they have their own unique splinter groups and beliefs. So but yeah, that's what I mostly think it boils down to, is this whole black nationalism thing, is why that's what I believe compels them to have to believe this.
Man.
Yeah. By the way, if you ever want more information on this, Surreal here in the chat, that's in here. I don't know if he's still currently present with us, but he has debated these people on Debate Talk, which is a radio show hosted by a moderate Hebrew Israelite, and has debated some of the guys on that radio program. And he is had video conversations with other people that are engaged with this. Another person I would suggest is a guy named Faithful to God, who makes videos exposing these doctrines and exposing the hypocrisy in some of these people. And another would be Brother J, like brother as in, with the A at the end, and just J, the letter. He was a former Hebrew Israelite who used to be did you see the chat, the little video I put in the in the Discord where it showed the guys that wear the purple?
Yeah.
He used to be a part of that particular group, IUIC. He was a former member of that group, going around teaching the same things they did. But he eventually left it, and now he spends his time online refuting their claims.
Oh, okay.
So he's done videos where he's shown what was the color of Adam, David, and Esau. Were they the same color? Because they'll say Esau was the white guy, and he's the first person to be white, and that's where the white race started. And they do this because there's a verse that says, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. It's like, well, Esau was hated, it's because he was a white guy. And Jay believed everything they believed, and he's basically giving an inside scoop of what they believe and how you can refute them. And in fact, the best thing is that because if you wonder why they can get so loud and just keep repeating themselves, Jay tells us that what they are affirming is this doctrine called strong and wrong. And what that means is that if you feel like you're being embraced, like if I would have come at them with something that they didn't know and they did not know how to respond, they're basically told that in that case, either just go to another verse and just read as loud as you can to cover over them, or to get a chant going and make sure you just shout and chant it repeatedly as loud as you can. So if I would have bring something up and they didn't know, they would be like, read this verse here. They say, the chosen of Israel, like, who are we? The chosen of it. And every other guy that's out there street preaching be saying, the chosen of Israel, who are we? The chosen of Israel, who are we? And they just keep going until they see the other guy give up. And then they say, okay, now that you're done wasting your breath, let's continue. And they use that to try to shut the conversation down. It's called the strong and wrong doctrine.
Huh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they're trying to be strong even though they're wrong. So yeah, hopefully that helps out. And I'll send you the links personally to check out some of these guys.
Thanks.
No problem. All right, so let's check out a little in the live chat because we got about almost 10 minutes left. We had an interesting conversation, especially talking about the whole thing with the Hebrew Israelites, and especially this one guy I talked to. Which, by the way, the podcast edition of that episode is being uploaded right now. So let me check to see if it actually has been. Yep, it has been officially uploaded. So if y'all want to check that out and spread the word there, feel free to do so. Like I said, for the sake of Arcane, because I know how he is going to be, I'm keeping the video version up because in case people like Surreal might want to download that and share it, then he can do that. But also, I know Arcane will be like, if I take it down, then he'll say I'm trying to hide something, which I don't know. Yeah. So let's see here. Ghost Hunter Gaming says, would anyone like to answer the question of when the sheep and the goat judgment occurs? Or when it occurs? It occurs on Judgment Day. It occurs when Judgment Day comes, and when basically you die, you are judged before God. Are you a sheep or are you a goat? That's all that verse is saying when it mentions that there is the judgment and the gathering of the sheep and the goats. So it's not that they're all being preserved for the specific moment. It happens upon death of where you will be judged to go and determined of whether or not if you're a sheep or a goat. So let's see. What else do we have? And I see that Watchman on the Wall is definitely being, I don't even think he's here anymore. I think he just came to antagonize. Said that my answer did not make sense when I was talking about the whole thing about the shooter and the will of God. Not everything is God's will. God said that there were things the Israelites did that didn't even enter his mind. And I responded that that's why I made distinctions. There's decretive will and prescriptive will. And the prescriptive will, yeah, that wasn't God's will, and that didn't cross his mind in regards to he didn't tell them to do this. He didn't give them a command that said do this. But was it part of the decretive will, meaning the things that just occurred and happened, like me taking this phone and dropping it? God, that wasn't a prescriptive will, but was it a decretive will? Well, because it happened, yeah, it's a decretive will. It has happened and occurred, and nothing is outside of God's knowledge concerning that. Then, of course, he says, to imply God used the shooting for good is something you have to assume because of your false Calvinist beliefs. No, I can imply that because of Genesis 50:20 and the verse that mentions that the crucifixion of Christ being ordained before the foundation of the world, that when these things have happened, and especially for the crucifixion of Jesus being the one time that someone who was actually innocent in the eyes of God was killed, was murdered, then I can say that if you're going to believe that, which the Bible does clearly teach this, then you have a problem with simply allowing God to operate as he wishes in bringing about good, including the redemption of human beings through the crucifixion of the Son, Jesus Christ. All right.
That reminds me, I remember telling my mom how, I've been doing research on, what caused the real cause of his death, the medical cause of his death. And I found some really interesting stuff. And she said that, before his crucifixion, actually Jesus, he didn't really want to do it, but it had to be done. And before he knew he predicted his death, he prayed 3 times, and while he was praying 3 times, he was sweating blood, and he prayed to God, about take this cup from me. When he said that, he wasn't saying, God, please. He was saying, take this cup from me. He was basically, he was fearing, how can I explain it? I think that was either in Matthew or Mark when he was praying 3 times. He said, Lord, take this cup, if possible, take this cup from me. For I fear for my life. I can't really explain it, but
yeah, he doesn't really say that, but the emotion.
He doesn't say fear of the life. He says, if it be your will.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but he says that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So essentially, people take from that meaning, well, the flesh is of Jesus is arguing with the spirit, and meaning that the flesh refuses, but it's not necessarily what it means. It means that the flesh of Jesus that was born on earth, created from the minerals of earth, that indwells the spirit. It was, arguing, saying, well, maybe not tonight, and the Lord's will is, tonight.
Right. And I also found out that Jesus actually died. The real cause of his death was a broken heart. Because remember when he was on the cross, one of the guards pierced his side, his left side, and blood and water came out.
Yeah.
Actually, that was from his heart.
Yeah, when the heart gives out, and then all of a sudden, then the body starts filling up with these particular liquids. Yeah, there was actually a book that I got, where it's a case for the resurrection, from the perspective of a medical examiner, and he goes into detail about all these issues, including, what was the cause of death for Jesus, and explaining, the instance of why the blood and the water and all that started leaking out from his side once he was stabbed. So yeah.
Yeah, there was I don't know, maybe it was the same doctor, but I would listen to a doctor several years ago, and on a video, and he said that taken from what we know, we can collect from how harsh the floggings were from Roman centurions, and their brute, because it's well known that Rome was one of the most excellent at killing and torture. That by the time he started walking out the gates, he would have already lost enough blood to, that he could barely walk, stand up. And so that's why they had to call someone over to help him pick up the cross. But the same examiner goes on in the video saying, by the time Jesus was dead, even if he, according to scripture, if the scripture was wrong and he didn't die, even if that were today, modern medical science couldn't help him. He would have bled too much. You couldn't help him. The whippings that he took carved out flesh. So you couldn't, that would be like you going toe to toe with, half a dozen Muhammad Alis. You're not getting back up ever, and your medical examiners are gonna look at you saying, "Yeah, you're gonna die before the end of the night. Nothing you can do about it."
Yeah.
So people are like, "Well, then it wasn't really Jesus." Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
it was his twin brother.
There's that reaction right there, like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think the Muslims point to a scripture that kind of hints that Jesus looked like Judas.
I pity the fool.
So they try to make it sound like, oh, they replaced him.
Actually, in Leonardo da Vinci's paintings, The Last Supper, there's actually some proof. I think I remember. Don't quote me on it, but I think the same person that was Jesus also played Judas.
And the painting?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but he ended up was posing for Da Vinci.
Yeah.
And then years later, he wanted to get a prisoner from. I don't remember. I know it was a prisoner from Italy somewhere, and it was the same person that posed for Jesus. It's just mind-boggling. Right. Don't quote me on that. I just remember somebody telling me this.
I'm quoting you on it because my high school teacher actually told us that story, and there was like actual just little sayings behind it. She said that when the guy ended up coming up and Leonardo ended up painting him, he basically asked a question like, "Hey, you know what? You look familiar. There's something about you." And he said, "Yeah, I was I was Jesus. I was a person that you asked to paint years ago. He said, really? He's like, well, yeah. A lot's happened to me since then. In a deep.
That's a lot of detail.
That's deep, ain't it?
Deep.
But
We got.
the funny thing, right before you go, though, is that Da Vinci lived 1,400 years later after Christ. So take from that what you will. So like even the Black Hebrew Israelites try to point out to a painting that existed, 3 centuries later after Christ. You can't. There's no accuracy to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So we got time for one question, which is founded in. We gotta try to get this from Galactic Genesis, who says his question doesn't make sense, and I guess in hindsight. But I asked questions to help get some clarification, so maybe that will help out. So he says, if I were to make a Christian game, would it undermine my mission to add fake gods like Venus and Saturn, but in the form of demons? And so I asked, what do you mean by your mission? He says, I want to try to make the gospel relatable by making a game that is an allegory for the spiritual warfare or some type of media. I feel like it would be a cool idea, but I don't want people to think that I believe there is more than one God. Well, for one, this actually wouldn't contradict too much of the issues of the different perspectives on God and such. There, in the book I have from Michael Heiser, the on what's it called, the Bible Unfiltered,
Unseen Realm.
Well, there's also that too, that it mentions that, and especially the unseen realm is where it gets more into detail about it. You have Psalm 82 verse 1 being this type of verse, and I'll just read it. There it says, God stands in the congregation of the mighty, he judges among the gods. So one of the things is that this is just simply spiritual beings, and even Heiser has made a mention of this kind of thing in a video series he's done, in which they're considered gods by the term of just simply the Hebrew phrase of Elohim, but they aren't God as in like Yahweh. They're not in that specific category that we would understand of a God today. So these people were called gods in that time period and concept, but what it mostly teaches is just simply that there were these spiritual beings that existed, not necessarily demons, but some sort of spiritual beings that resided around and would sometimes appear in the form of trying to be idols. So this would not make people, because if people want to try to study it from a biblical perspective or a historical perspective, there are concepts where these are mentioned. Jesus mentioned that there's only one God that people should worship, and that is Yahweh, because that is the person that's actually God. It's not these people, these other spiritual beings. That's the distinction: God versus these spiritual beings. Some of them are angels, but some of them aren't. They're just simply other angelic type of beings that are in that specific council, and they have a specific role. That's why it's referred to as the council amongst the gods in Psalm 82. That is called the divine council, in other words.
Taste the rainbow.
Why? Why? Why?
There's a rainbow in the heavenly court, ain't it?
Probably. But anyways, I hope that answers the question there, Galactic Genesis, because I'm out of time, unfortunately, for Ask CA. It is 10:04 p.m. and I see you put your little camera
Christian
on there.
Man.
Yeah, hold on. He's got his split broadcaster on.
No, well, yeah, my split broadcaster is the only thing I got on there. So yeah.
What's going on? What's going on with that?
I was thinking about starting XSplit pretty soon.
Sounds intriguing.
Yes, isn't it?
Okay, you're creepy.
You sound like you burped.
I am a voice actor, and I am a 23-year-old guy living by himself. I am always creepy, girl.
Oh my god.
You have better range than I do.
Oh, I do? Wait, hold on a second. I do? Of course you do, you crazy nutcase. Wait a second, are you talking to yourself again? I think we are, and I think we need to stop before we get checked into a clinical psychology department. Okay, then, let's do that. Yay! I would love us to just keep talking. But we got better things to do! All right. I'm done. I'm done trying to be ridiculous. All right. So, anyways, for that, well, since that checks out, I could actually start getting ready for the voice acting work for the Dragon Ball Super Abridged now, since I'm actually healed up from being sick. So that being said, we are going to at least I am going to Discord to do the live after show. It's not live. Dang it. This is why, because I'm yawning right now. I'm starting to get tired. I'll be there for a few minutes before I have to go to bed, get some laundry done before that, so that way I can get ready, go to LARPing for tomorrow, and then go to work. So I hope y'all have a fantastic weekend, and for those who are getting ready for Super Bowl Sunday, just remember, don't drink, and try not to get all crazy if your favorite team happens to lose on that day, because you should really focus on the fact that you are gathered there as a family or with friends. That's what should be important, is that you're able to be with people that you love, not trying to make it a big deal about who wins or loses. On the other hand, cousin Jake owes you money, break his arm.
It's a sin to support the Patriots.
Surreal. I will Bible thump you to next week if you don't stop with these random outbursts. I will show you the meaning of a Bible thumper, my friend.
Don't make me go Winry.
Oh no.
Should have drank your milk.
She will. Don't let her go Winry on you. Trust me, she's called me short once. I overreacted. Well, then we know where that. Full Metal Alchemist jokes, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Stop calling me short. Stop giving. No, I don't like milk. Drink it. That's why you're too short. How dare you?
All right. That's all the time we got today. But until then, this has been the Christian Anarchist. Hope to see y'all next Friday and hope to see you in the next video. But until then, shalom aleichem, peace be upon you, because I wish that upon you. Have a good night.